Hi, I'm BooksMcD. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing the book Stamped, Racism, Antiracism, and You, a remix by Jason Reynolds of the larger work Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America by Ibram X. Kendi. It kind of seems like Jason maybe repackaged Stamped from the Beginning for younger readers, but this book is certainly for all ages. Jason likes to refer to this book as a present book, not a history book, because racism and the concepts and scenarios presented in this book are occurring presently. They are recurring pieces of history repeating itself, and we are dealing with it presently, so this is a present book, not a history book. I like to think of this book as a re-education book because I think there are sections of it that will challenge what people thought they learned in elementary school, but for some reason the history was sugar-coated or glossed over, or just covered up. Since the murder of George Floyd on May 25th, there have been worldwide protests and people speaking out saying what we should all know by now is true, which is Black Lives Matter. And if you don't think that, get out of here because I don't need you on this channel. And me and all my 30 subscribers, you can leave. I'll just have one subscriber. I don't care. If you don't think that Black Lives Matter, I don't need you. I don't want you here. But maybe pick up one of these damn books. There has been an online speaking out from the Black community to say, you know, we're a little bit tired of you saying, I'm here, I'm an ally, now tell me what to do. And because of that, people are sharing resources, donation platforms, foundations, information, book lists, and people are re-educating themselves. And I hope and I am pleading with people to keep up this energy. And I am holding myself accountable. And so I have gone through these book lists and I am going to continue to maintain this energy that must be maintained. And so I started here, Stamped. Seemed like the 101 place to start. Now I already had this book out from the library because right before the pandemic, which we're still in a pandemic, I had just seen Jason Reynolds talk. One of my friends, got these tickets, and shame on me, by the way, because listen to this story. One of my friends had gotten these tickets and they had an extra and they said, do you want to see Jason Reynolds talk? And I said, well, I don't really know who that is. Shame on me, right? Now, he's a children's writer and I don't read too many children's works, but I didn't know him. And I'm glad I know him now. I believe he's ambassador for children's literature to the Library of Congress. And I saw him talk at a local high school, and he was fantastic. It was a prepared speech that was kind of a monologue of his journey to getting where he is today. And when he spoke, there were times that I laughed, and he intended for us to laugh. But there were times when it was serious, and I definitely cried. And it was powerful. And after I saw Jason Reynolds speak, I couldn't stop talking about it. I had to read all of his stuff. So I went to the library. And this was there, along with the track series, Long Way Down, and another text that I was able to get. Now, some of his books were not there, but you best believe I will be reading those as well. But given, that I was in the middle of the track series when George Floyd was murdered, I decided to read Stamped. Because no time like the present. And it seemed like a good time for re-education and for educating myself so that I can hopefully become an anti-racist and an ally. And I have seen some other interesting things on the internet that are excellent points, and one of which was made by Bookish Realm saying that, white people, you don't get to just show up and say Black Lives Matter one time and then the rest of the year you lose that energy. And you don't get to say, I'm an ally because you showed up. You don't get to claim the term ally. That is given to you. And I also saw another post on Twitter that said, allyship is hard work, and you will do things wrong. And I am probably going to say something wrong in this video. I am probably going to slip up or misspeak or get a piece of information wrong, but you have to be open to learning and being wrong and not take being wrong personally and not to clap back when somebody says, no, that's not right, you're wrong. You have to say, okay, where am I wrong? You have to re-educate yourself. You have to Google it. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me, too. You know, I'm one of those ones who I would take wrong into my heart, and I would be like, I was wrong. Oh my God, I'm going to cry about it. Now is not the time, because it's not about you, and it's not about me. And so whether or not you were wrong, it's time to re-educate. Start here. Start with Stamped. If I had one critique of this book, and it's not even really a critique, you know, this book is a 5 out of 5, no doubt. It's that there is simultaneously too much information and not enough information in this one book. I'm just going to run through a laundry list of categories and topics that are presented in this book, some of which will definitely challenge ideas of things you thought you learned in elementary school. So climate and curse theory, Puritans, Thomas Jefferson, the Louisiana Purchase, Lincoln, the Civil War and the Union, Andrew Johnson, Thaddeus Stevens, the 15th Amendment, Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, Jack Johnson and Tarzan, Marcus Garvey, Brown vs. Board of Education, Emmett Till, Martin Luther King Jr., Letter from Birmingham Jail, James Baldwin, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Malcolm X, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Black Power, the Black Panther Party, Angela Davis, Rocky, the book Roots, Reagan and the War on Drugs, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, Hip-Hop, Rodney King, Bill Clinton, the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, the No Child Left Behind Act and Standardized Testing, Hurricane Katrina, Barack Obama, and Black Lives Matter. All of that, and more, contained in this one 300-page book. I mean, there isn't enough space in here for all of that. And Jason Reynolds did a great job of squeezing it all together, but each of those things I mentioned is a book in itself. Some of the concepts at the very beginning of the book that are important and get repeated often and are probably mentioned in Stamped from the Beginning and a lot of Ibram X. Kendi's other works, like How to Be an Anti-Racist, are the concepts of segregationists, assimilationists, and anti-racists. And so segregationists are the haters. They are people who don't like you, and they won't, because they're racist. Segregationists. Assimilationists are people that like you, but only if you're like them. Oh, you're the same as me, so you're okay. That's an assimilationist. But an anti-racist is somebody that loves you because you're you. The goal for everyone should be to be an anti-racist. The difference being pointed out between segregationists, assimilationists, and anti-racists, an important theme throughout this book. Not a theme, but important information, pieces of information throughout this book. Another reason that I wanted to re-educate myself was this constant speaking out. You know, I'm listening and I'm trying to be an ally. Whether or not I am being a successful one, I don't know, but I'm trying to be an ally. And so when I see people say, keep up that energy, one thing that I thought this book pointed out was an excellent quote, and it just made me think, yes, this is what that means. So this is in the section talking about the 15th Amendment, right? So it says the 15th Amendment was a big deal, but here's the thing about big deals. If people aren't careful, they can be tricked into believing a big deal is a done deal. I cannot say enough how much that quote jumped out at me. A big deal is a done deal, because it is not a done deal to just have police charged for the murder of George Floyd. It is not a done deal. Another important concept I think came out of this book was in Malcolm X's autobiography, which was published after his death. Alex Haley was working on with him, and it went through Malcolm X's journey, you know, from assimilationist to an anti-white separatist to an anti-racist. But what Malcolm X argued, he argued that though white people weren't born racist, America was built to make them that way. And if they wanted to fight against it, they had to address it with the other racist white people around them. We have to address it with each other. And it is systemic. And if this book taught me anything, it's that those of you who think that maybe racism is over and I don't see color, you really got to reevaluate that. Because when you read this book and you realize that not only is this stuff still happening, because George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Eric Garner and countless names since Emmett Till and beyond before, you can't just turn that off in a day. You can't just turn that off in a week of protesting. It's been hundreds of years, centuries. That doesn't just get fixed in 2 weeks of protesting. And so when friends and colleagues from the Black community are speaking out and saying, keep up your energy, this is what they're saying. Because do you think because you donated to one foundation that it's fixed now? Because it's not fixed now. The effort must be constant. And so I read this book in a day. Anybody could read this book, maybe it was 2 days, but you could read this book in a day. That's how fast it goes. But there's so much more to learn. You know, I feel like I'm not saying enough. This is what I meant about you might be doing something wrong. And this video might be wrong. You know, maybe it's not my place to speak out, but if I've learned anything this week, it's that I've learned that I can't be silent. I can't be silent and watch this happen. Silence is violence, and silence is compliance, and I am not compliant. Black lives matter, and more than mattering, they are important, and people need to pick up these books and learn, and they need to educate each other, the other white people in their community that are racist, that are assimilationists, and call that out, but help people learn. One other thing I wanted to share in general about re-education and educating yourself, it's just an anecdote, but I think it falls in line with what Jason Reynolds and Ibram Kendi are saying and what millions of people are sharing on the internet about re-educating yourself. So when I was in college, I studied psychology and religious studies with an emphasis on social psychology and cultures, and I took a class called The Psychology of Prejudice. So my professor, I was his research assistant, he was doing this experiment, which I thought was pretty interesting and really important. It showed me something important, at least. So before the class, before the term, he had us fill out all of these measurements of racist attitudes, sexist attitudes, homophobic attitudes, and there was old-fashioned and modern racist surveys, and he had us fill out all of these surveys and take all of these tests, essentially. And then you would get your score after. And we put all of these things into envelopes, and we tucked them away. And then we had the term, and we learned about prejudice and discrimination and different cultures and different sexual orientations, and we learned about sexism, and we learned about gender, and we learned about racism, and we learned and we learned and we learned throughout the term the psychology of all of this stuff, about why people stereotype and bias, and we learned. And then at the end of the term, we retook all of those same measurements that we took at the beginning. We didn't see what we had taken. We took new ones, and we got our scores. And then he gave us back our envelopes. He gave us back our envelopes from the beginning of term, and we compared our scores. And what he showed was that this one class contributed to the lowering of scores of racist and sexist attitudes. And I mean, it wasn't just the one class. He did this with multiple classes because one class wouldn't have been enough data. But what I'm saying is taking one class, educating yourself and learning about these concepts and what they mean and where the psychology comes from, that information, that education was enough to lower people's scores on racism and sexism and homophobia. And so I will never forget that, because education is important. And so if you're worried about saying or doing the wrong thing, then educate yourself. Re-educate yourself. Start at the beginning and relearn what you think you know. That's the best I can recommend to do. Now also, don't lose that energy. Show up. Donate. Read. Speak out. Say it 1,000,000 times. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Do not lose that energy. I will continue to educate myself. I will continue to read Jason Reynolds' books. I will continue to read a lot of the books circulating in book lists. I will continue to maintain my energy. And I am making that promise here. And I hope people hold me accountable. The worst thing you could do right now is nothing. I will try to post some links below of the different funds and organizations and books. I'll try to post a list of books. Speaking of which, since we're talking about Stamped in this, you know, there is a list of further reading in here. It's 4 pages of books of further reading to educate yourself. Do not lose that energy. Re-educate, donate, write your state representatives, vote, show up, be an ally, listen, be inclusive. Don't just include one type of black person, include all the types of black people, LGBTQIA included. There's no way I have said even near enough in this video. I know it. But I am making a promise to continue this energy and to continue to read and learn and re-educate myself. And I hope that other people continue to do the same. Thanks for watching. I'm BooksMcD. Please feel free to follow me on Goodreads, Twitter, Instagram, or Litzy. I don't think I have said enough in this video. I'm sure I missed more important things I wanted to share. But if there are any things I could leave behind at the end to sum up, I would say Black Lives Matter. This should be known. Black lives are important. White people need to re-educate themselves and not be content to remain an assimilationist, but to take steps to be an anti-racist. And then maintain that energy constantly. I challenge myself to do it. I challenge my friends to do it, my loved ones. I challenge everybody out there to do it. Please read this book and start your re-education. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.